Hello and welcome again to this session of the conference in which I will share some of the things we are doing in the ministry, the service of the Lord. I only have 20 minutes to speak about this, so I will focus specifically in one area of our service. The organization or the organizers of the conference asked me to share with you about my experience on formal biblical studies. So that's what I want to do in the following minutes. It's always, maybe it's not the kind of missionary report that you in your house and in other conference have heard from other workers. So in this sense, it can be something novel, but I pray and I trust that this report would both encourage others to think about formal biblical studies and also to have your prayers in what we're doing for the Lord. My missionary report, I have entitled this report as the relevance of biblical studies for the work of the Lord. Of course, I think it's very relevant. Maybe some believers won't see it that way, but I think that's critical, especially today and the time we are living, in which more and more people, young people, are going to the universities and colleges, and they are acquiring a lot of knowledge in other areas. And sometimes Christianity is regarded as a kind of religion or in which the mind has nothing to do. Of course, that is not true. And biblical scholarship is something that is it's very critical, and it's a great need for the development and growth of the church. First of all, I want to speak a little bit about us. My wife Cheryl. We have three kids, children. You will see them probably in the live session. Amanda, Ray, and Michael. We were commended to the grace of the Lord in March 2009 by the Concepcion Christian Assembly. I worked as an architect for almost 10 years. And in March of that year, 2009, we were finally commended to the grace of the Lord. So in 2009 and 2013, we moved to the southern part of Chile. You were looking at a picture of that big, beautiful area of the country. It's called Patagonia, the Chilean Patagonia. In 2013, we moved to the central area of Chile, and we lived in a small town called Rosario. And in 2020, a few months ago, we moved to San Felipe, where I am right now with my family, in the central part of the Chile, but north, 1 hour north from the capital, Santiago de Chile. But now I want to focus on what we did, or I did, between 2016 and 2019. During those years, I was studying in the United States, in the city of Wheaton, in Chicago, in Illinois. I received a scholarship which covered all the tuition fees for the master's degree granted by the Billy Graham Center in Wheaton. And as you can read, my degree is a master's degree in Biblical Exegesis in both Old and New Testament. You can go today, if you want to pursue this program, you can pick between Old Testament or New Testament. When we were planning to go there was a long time of prayer. Actually, it was a long-term desire of my heart to go on a place and receive training, to learn from the Bible, to learn specifically how to understand the original languages. This master's degree focuses a lot on original languages. So during 3 years, I was training to read and to analyze the Hebrew text and the Greek text of the New Testament. That demands a lot of work, but I'm just so glad I went. It was a great experience, learning from others, learning from teachers, from scholars. Scholars, my professors at least, are very humble Christians. They never pretended to have all the questions to all the answers. On the contrary, they were always very humble, and many times they said, "I don't know, we don't understand, or we don't know all the details." So that was a great experience to study with scholars who I respect as scholars and as Christians, as believers as well. It was a great experience to know other believers as well from other Christian traditions, which differ from what I practice in my own Christian tradition. Nevertheless, that was never an impediment to have fellowship and friendship. And probably that is one of the experiences I appreciate the most. So in 2019, I finished my master's degree. I have a great time. It was a great experience. And a couple of professors encouraged me to keep studying, to keep pursuing another degree, especially because I was coming back to Chile, and there's a great need of scholarly work in Latin America. There's a lot of material in English, as you know. You go to Amazon or Christian Library, and you will find a lot of material written in English. But in Spanish, we don't have much. Most of that material is translated material from English, but there are not many scholars in both New Testament or Old Testament from Latin America, writing from and for Latin America. So some of my professors encouraged me to pursue another degree, and I applied to the Ph.D. in Wheaton. I was accepted to do the Ph.D. there, but we had to return to Chile. And the Lord opened other door. I was accepted by Trinity College, Bristol, and the University of Aberdeen. They're working together in this, and I'm already in my second year of my PhD in Old Testament. I'm writing on the book of Malachi, and so what you heard in my message of Malachi is this very small part of all the research I'm doing currently. Right now, I'm working in the book. So the thesis is entitled "A Gift Worth of the Great King." You heard that. A rhetorical analysis of the relationship between divine identity and cultic failure in Malachi. It's a long title, as usually are in PhD thesis. But this is what I'm doing right now. It's a distant program. It's a distance program, and it's also a part-time program. So I have the time to attend the responsibilities on the ministry here in San Felipe and in Chile. But it's very demanding. But so far, I have received a lot of grace from the Lord and help and support to keep going. You can pray for this. You can pray for what I'm doing. This is one part of what we are doing. So maybe someone it's asking right now, why so many studies? Is that necessary? Are formal studies that important? Well, my answer, of course, is going to be yes. And if you ask to any scholar, it's going to tell you the same. If someone says you don't need that, probably doesn't have all this training. Anyway, I think they're very important, and I'm going to give you 3 reasons why they're so important. The first is formal studies are an instance in which tools, this is a very important word, tools can be acquired in order to have a methodology, another critical word. So we can apply those methodologies to the study of the scriptures. To pursue formal studies is to acquire tools. All these are tools. Go to a seminary or Bible college, pursuing a degree is not going to make you more spiritual, or it's not going to make you a better Christian, but it's going to make you a better prepared servant. So that's why personally I'm trying to be a better servant, to have better tools so I can serve better the Lord and my people, to serve better my brothers and sisters in Christ. So formal studies are important because they can provide tools, and those tools are going to help us to have a methodology, which is sometimes one of the biggest problems we have. We study the scriptures without a methodology, and sometimes that methodology rests on the imagination of the preacher or the teacher or the reader of the Bible. The second, it's the reason why it's so important. It's because we are in need of interpretation. We are interpreting all the time. Even in English, when I was living in the States, speaking English wasn't the problem. The problem was all the idioms and expressions that local Americans were using, and sometimes I had to ask, what do you mean by that? I understood the words, but I didn't understood the meaning. I didn't understand the meaning of those words. And it's the same with the Bible. We need interpretation. What does it mean? What does it mean, this passage, this verse, this word? Just a simple example. We have several examples on the scripture about the need of interpretation. But in Acts 8, Philip goes to talk, to this person, this African person, and Philip ran to him and heard him reading Isaiah the prophet and asked, "Do you understand? Do you know? Do you understand what you're reading?" And he said, "How can I unless someone guides me?" And he invited Philip to come up and sit with him. Notice what this man says. I can't understand. I need someone who would be able to guide me. I need guidance through this passage. This is what biblical exegesis is. I didn't explain that. If someone doesn't know the word exegesis, it has to do with explaining all those methodologies as we use in order to understand the text better. That's our goal, trying to understand the text better. That's why we need those tools. Another example, in Nehemiah 8:8, Ezra is reading the law. They read from the book, from the law of God clearly, and they gave the sense so that the people understood the reading. There's debate among scholars. They differ between what does it mean this expression gave the sense. Some scholars think that the Hebrew word only means to translate. That makes sense because this generation, most of them were speaking Aramaic, which is similar to Hebrew, but it's different at the same time. It's logical to think that they were not able to understand the Hebrew scriptures, so they needed translation. That's a possibility. But it's also a possibility that the idea of this word translated by the ESV as gave the sense, it means that, to explain what does it mean? What does God mean when he says this in Leviticus or Exodus or Numbers? So we are in need of interpretation. We need someone who would be able to help us, to provide us the tools to understand the text better. And we have the same need today. We have the same need today. We have another problem. There's another thing why biblical studies are important, and formal biblical studies are important, because maybe you are a good student of the Bible, and that's perfect. That's wonderful. There's a lot of tools today you can use for improving the knowledge of the scriptures. So that's fantastic. Not everyone is going to go to a seminary or a college or pursuing a Ph.D. Not everybody is called to do that. In our case, in my case, this is clearly a call from the Lord. I have many reasons to think in that way. I forgot to mention that when we applied to Wheaton College, the first thing I did was to talk with my elders in Concepcion to ask them for advice and guidance and approval. And they were 100% supportive of our plans, and it has been that way until today. So they understand my assembly, the assembly who commended us, they understand and they know perfectly what I'm doing, and they're very supportive of everything what I'm doing, but not everyone is called to do this. Other missionaries are called to do other things. Other missionaries are called to do different ministry for the Lord. The work of the Lord is big. That's why I love Wheaton College's motto, for Christ and his kingdom. The kingdom is big. The kingdom is so huge, and there's space and there's room for a lot of different kind of ministries and services that we can do for the Lord. One of them is biblical studies, or formal biblical studies, to help to provide believers with tools for a better understanding of the scriptures. So the third thing why formal biblical studies are important is because we need to at least fill two gaps. The first gap is the linguistic gap. The Bible was written in Hebrew and Greek, and we need to understand those languages. God chose those languages. I have a very brief example here in Galatians 4:14. The King James says, "And my temptation, which was in my flesh, ye despised not, nor rejected, but received me as an angel of God, even as Christ Jesus." So Paul is saying, my temptation in my flesh, referring to a sickness he had, and he says, you didn't reject me. However, the Greek text says something different. The Greek text says, and the temptation, which can also be translated as trial, the same word, peidasmos, functions as temptation or a trial. It depends the context. So here is, and the temptation or the trial of you in my flesh, you didn't yet despise me or rejected me. So the Greek text, and you can check with the ESV, they did translate it correctly. It's not Paul's temptation, it's not Paul's trial, it's the believer's trial. To receive Paul under those conditions, was sick, was a temptation for them, was a trial for them. So, wow, how do you know that? You might answer, well, that's what the Greek text says. You can notice that in the King James or other translations. So we need to understand, and I give you an example, the word peidasmos for temptation can also mean trial. So we need to engage with the languages. We need to understand, and we need to analyze the words, not using an English dictionary, but using a Greek dictionary, trying to understand how those words function in those days where the Bible was written. The second gap, the second gap we need to fill is the cultural gap, and I'm going to use the same verse. Paul says, your temptation. Why was Paul's sickness a temptation for the Galatians? It was a trial. The question is why? Because in those days, sickness were related to the actions of the gods. So if someone was having a bad sickness, people, some scholars think that Paul maybe had seizures, some kind of sickness that would be very embarrassing. That would be associated in the mindset, in the worldview of the first Greco-Roman century worldview. That would be regarded as like a judgment, like an action from the gods against that person. However, the Galatians didn't think in that way, although what for Paul was a very difficult situation, a temptation for them, they received him well. So we are not aware of those things unless we understand the culture of the first century, and the Greco-Roman culture, and also the Israelite culture. Well, I have to wrap up. So just to mention a couple of projects ahead. One of the projects we have here in San Felipe is to train the local church leaders here in the assembly, another assembly close by, and maybe another assembly close by, sharing with them the tools I already have and training them, trying to help them to have better tools for their study of the scriptures, so they can, because they will be teaching constantly and they need better tools. But also I hope to share these tools with anyone who wants to have better tools to study the scriptures. A second project is it's writing. With the Lord's help and grace, I hope to finish my PhD in a few years, and hopefully that thesis will be published as a book. That will provide the raw material to draw a commentary on Malachi and maybe other prophets in Spanish. That's one of the main purposes I have, is to write. And it's interesting how the Lord has been opening doors. I just finished a few days ago a very short commentary on the book of Nahum, and I hope that it's going to be published in Spanish in the following months. So the Lord is opening doors in this area. There's a great need of Spanish material. And finally, there's a very interesting project coming. It's called SEPTI, Seminario Evangélico Bíblico y Teológico Iberoamericano. It's a long name. And this is a project, it's a team effort with other assemblies from Latin America, from Argentina, from Ecuador, Colombia, Peru, Spain, and some other countries of Latin America. This is going to be a new project. It's going to start in August, and it's going to be a seminary. For now, it's going to be a full online, but the purpose of this is to provide good formal training for believers, Spanish speakers from the assemblies in Latin America and Spain. I will be teaching a survey of the Old Testament, and I'm very excited for that. Another interesting thing of this project is that most of the professors are workers, same as me. They are missionaries, and they also, some of them have pursued degrees, or they are finishing studies to pursue a degree, and it's going to be very good. So we are very happy and excited about this project called SEPTI, and you please can pray for this. I hope this report is going to help you to understand the relevance of biblical studies, and how can we use them for good, for the development, for the nourishment and the growth of the church, to have more mature churches, more mature believers. Maturity will only come if we have a solid exposition of the scriptures. May the Lord bless you, and thank you for listening to this report.